Hello and welcome to my channel, Rhino here. Today we're going to finish up with our favorite psychopathic apologist. Last time we saw him descending deeper into the pits of, well, the subway, but it clearly was meant as a metaphor. Today we get to watch him ascend into the upper world. Will the sepia filter be removed when he reaches the surface? Only time can tell.
I became so frustrated by our arguments that I began looking for other ways to defeat Randy. I made fun of him for getting molested when he was a child. I saw his 12-year-old sister in the visiting room, and I said some things about her that I'm not going to repeat here.
Yeah, we spent the first half thoroughly demonstrating that you are, in fact, a scumbag. We can move on now.
I'd keep messing with him until he got upset, and when he got upset, I'd say, "Look at you, getting angry at me. You call yourself a Christian." Oddly enough, Randy and I became friends. We'd stay up all night playing cards, throwing a roll of toilet paper around like it's a football, and of course arguing about the Bible. But I was still looking for ways to defeat him at something, so we got into the world's first ever fasting battle. It wasn't a battle for him. He wasn't trying to outdo me at anything.
Oh, of course not, because trying to win a competition would be so unchristian. And you obviously hadn't developed the amazing humble skills that you have now, so you were the one trying to outdo him.
But I was certainly trying to outdo him. Randy would fast for long periods of time, nothing but water. After a while, I joined in. And whenever he would complete a fast, I'd start my own fast and then go a few days longer than he did. For our first exchange, Randy fasted 1 week. I knew he wasn't eating because he gave me all his meal trays. When he was finished, I said, "All right, I'm going 10 days. I had never gone a day without food in my life, but I went 10 days straight, just so I would know that I had beaten the Christian."
Okay, we get it. You were a douchebag. Still are, in my opinion. Does this actually have anything to do with your conversion? Please don't tell me that the main reason you're a Christian is because some guy could go without food for longer than you, so you assumed it was because of his religion.
We went back and forth, with me always going a few days longer than he did. Eventually, he asked me, "Hey, how come you always fast a little longer than I do? Are we in some sort of competition that I don't know about?" I said, "No, I hadn't even noticed. Just coincidence, I guess." Randy fasted 40 days. He went 32 days on nothing but water, and then he added liquids like Kool-Aid for the rest. Told me that Jesus had gone 40 days, and that's why he picked the number 40.
Did Jesus get Kool-Aid in the desert? I know Jim Jones did.
I said, "All right, I'm going 42. And even 6 weeks of nothing but water and rage. I was going to beat Randy and Jesus." On the 11th day of my fast, a guard came in and told me to pack up my stuff. I had passed out earlier and hit my head on the way down. The medical staff knew my mental health history, and they thought I was trying to starve myself to death.
Well, that sounds like a reasonable conclusion, given what you've told us about your mental health history.
I'm trying to beat the Christian. They think I'm trying to commit suicide really, really slowly. But they had seen that I'd lost enough weight to realize that there was a problem, and the blood pressure monitor the nurse put on my finger said that I was dead. So I had to pack up my books, philosophy and science, and the apologetics books Randy gave me, and head to my new home, a cell with a camera where I could be watched day and night.
And what, you got to liking the idea of being watched all the time so much that you started believing in a magic man in the sky who will watch you even when you're out of prison? Is your religion an extension of Stockholm Syndrome?
Living the dream. I lost about 80 pounds from fasting. I developed a horrible rash all over my body. It felt like poison ivy. It's called shingles. It's caused by vitamin deficiency.
And that, my dear Christian friends, is precisely why extended fasting is not recommended.
I was having blackouts. I was getting tunnel vision. The doctor at the jail said he was going to tube feed me. The social worker was talking about having me sent to my third mental hospital. And when I wasn't reading, all I could think about was taking people out to the woods and peeling their skin off.
Which doesn't surprise me at all at this point. And that being said, I suspect that you're over-dramatizing it a bit for the sake of the, "Oh, this completely repugnant person became a Christian and God forgave him? I guess I'm not that bad, so it'll work for me too," factor. Spoiler, Most atheists don't sit around thinking that Christianity would be good for them if only they weren't such horrible people.
But I found renewed purpose in my lonely cell with a library at my disposal and nothing else to do. I had a perfect opportunity to prepare for an epic showdown with Randy. I could study the Bible, put together new arguments, go back to E-Block, and destroy the faith of my friend. I asked the chaplain for some Bible studies. He gave me a series of studies on the Gospel of John with graded assignments. So here I am, a rapidly deteriorating atheist, sitting in a poorly lit cell, doing my Bible homework, getting straight A's.
Your imagery is just so subtle there, with you descending down deeper in the subway as an atheist, and now rising out to become a Christian. Wasn't heavy-handed at all.
I haven't eaten in days, and I read about Jesus saying, "I'm the bread of life. He who comes to me will never go hungry." I'm obsessed with liberating myself from a society that has me trapped in a 6.5 by 8 foot cell. And I read, "If the sun sets you free, you will be free indeed."
So, did you get out of prison immediately upon accepting Jesus? And I'm not talking early out for good behavior or anything like that. I'm talking full-scale, miraculous, Jesus came in through the ceiling and grabbed you, then plunked you out where you were free, and he took care of all the paperwork so that they wouldn't immediately send you back. Now, if that happened, I might take the rest of what you say a bit more seriously.
I'm wondering how long my body can take what I'm doing to it before my heart stops and I read, "I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me will live, even though he dies." Kind of creepy when a book talks to you, but what do I know? I used to think that cats were talking to me.
Yeah, I'd agree there. If you honestly thought that cats and books were talking to you, you have issues. And as you pointed out yourself earlier in the video, you do have issues. Mystery solved!
Lying on my back day after day, reflecting on life and theology and philosophy, 3 things started to destabilize my entire belief system. First, what's called the design argument finally hit me. I was looking at a wall and how the bricks were arranged, and I thought to myself, you know, if someone told me that these bricks went into this order by some process that didn't involve intelligence, I'd smack them in the mouth.
All right, yes, we know at this point it wouldn't take at all much for you to become violent against someone, but a house is not equal to a body. The body has all sorts of mistakes in it that even the worst human engineer wouldn't have made. It's amazing, but nothing about it implies design.
And yet I believe that life formed without intelligence, when the most basic living cell is unimaginably more complicated than some bricks stacked on a wall.
Yeah, the whole teleological argument is a big old question-begging fallacy. Basically, the only reason we know that walls are built by humans is that we observe humans building walls. There are amazing structures that look very man-made, but are demonstrably naturally occurring. They look like they're man-made because they resemble things that we know people make. That's really all there is to it.
Why did I blindly accept the extraordinary claim that life arose spontaneously from non-life without demanding some very good evidence?
Well, we do have very good evidence for that hypothesis, and we have seen no evidence for a supernatural being popping life into existence out of nothing 6,000 years ago. In fact, we have a plethora of evidence suggesting that the Earth is, in fact, billions of years old. This does not in itself prove that your God doesn't exist, but it does demonstrate that the Bible, the source of your information about your God, is flawed at best.
Second, I found out how Jesus' apostles died. Most of them went to their bloody deaths claiming that they had seen him risen from the dead. My explanation for the origin of Christianity had always been that the apostles made up a story so that they could spread his message, but now my explanation wasn't making sense. If you're willing to die for something, you have to believe it.
And in order for you to believe something, it does not necessarily have to be true. Hence your belief in a magical sky wizard who watches you eat and poop and have sex. Boy, remember back when you were saying that atheist claims make no sense when questioned? Well, the more you explain about Christianity to me, the more I question it, and the less sense it makes. Congratulations, you've convinced me that if your God exists, he is a complete creep.
When a terrorist blows himself up, he's obviously sincere. So the disciples, the apostles, had to believe what they were dying for, but this means that they were convinced that they had seen Jesus risen from the dead.
Okay, let's apply Occam's razor here. There are 3 possibilities that I see. There might be more that I haven't thought of, but there are 3 that I can see. So which claim requires the more ridiculous assumptions in order to be true? Number 1, that they experienced a group hallucination, some cases of which are well documented, so we know it's a possibility. Or number 2, a man really did come back from the dead 3 days after dying and then ascend into heaven, both events which have never been well documented except in various religious myths. And number 3, that the events were simply not accurately recorded. Personally, I'm going to go with number 3, as nothing was written down until at least 30 years after the fact, and we all know how quickly oral stories can change.
Now, usually when someone is willing to lay down their life for something, it's for an ideology that they got from someone else, and that ideology could be true or false.
So you're saying that the disciples didn't get their ideology from Jesus, who I would think would qualify as someone else, but that they made it up themselves? How does that make your case any better? Unless you're claiming that they got it straight from God, and therefore it must be true, but your only source for that is the Bible, and every other holy book says the exact same thing, so that's not really any evidence that it's true.
The disciples were dying for something that they saw.
As were the disciples of Jim Jones. The commitment of the cult members says nothing to the truth of the claims made by the cult leaders.
What could have convinced so many different people that they had all seen a resurrected man?
My guess would be either a group hallucination or editing of the story after the fact.
I could explain one witness by saying he's crazy, but all of them, something was going on here and I had to figure it out. But I couldn't come up with any explanation for why they had that level of confidence other than they actually saw him.
Well, then you certainly didn't apply very much thought to the problem, did you?
Third, I started worrying that Jesus might actually be better than me. Now, if you're not a complete moral relativist or maybe one of the new atheists, it's probably obvious to you that Jesus is better than me.
I don't even know what to say there. I mean, yeah, you're a shit person, but Jesus is the guy who introduced eternal torture for finite crimes, so I'd say you win. Not by much, mind you, but you do.
But I wasn't the clearest thinker on moral issues back then, so getting my mind around this was very difficult.
So are you trying to imply that anyone who thinks morals are relative are automatically as bad as you were pre-conversion? Well, if morals aren't relative, please explain to me why every single person on the planet will disagree with every other person about something morality-based. How do you determine which morals are the absolute ones? Do you go by what God says in the Bible? Because in the Bible, sometimes it's okay to hate, but other times it's completely off limits. Sometimes killing is okay, but other times it's a big no-no. Rape is okay as long as the woman is unmarried and you pay off her dad, but it's not okay if she's already married. Seriously, if you want to tell me that morals are absolute, you have to demonstrate this. Your religion does not accomplish this.
Here's the problem that emerged. I had two beliefs that just didn't go together. On the one hand, I believe that human beings are lumps of cells, meaningless lumps of cells, and that everything we did was pointless. At the same time, I believe that I was the best, most important person in the entire world.
Everyone feels like that about themselves. That's part of the nature of having consciousness. Your own existence is the most important thing to you, and always will be. Even in religion, the whole purpose is to extend your existence beyond your inevitable death. If that isn't the ultimate in self-importance, then I don't know what is.
How is it possible to be the best, most important, worthless lump of cells? If there were to be some sort of best person, that would require something like a standard of good, and that would require something like God, and then someone like Jesus would be better than me.
Why would a standard of good necessarily require there be a God? You have not demonstrated the relationship here. And even if God does exist, that by itself does not prove that God's standard of morals is absolute. In fact, as I pointed out earlier, the Bible itself is quite morally relativistic, so if it is accurate, then morals cannot be absolute.
So my beliefs were breaking down at the foundational level. And once the foundations start crumbling, everything starts coming down. I went from believing that I was the best person in the world to thinking that I was the worst person in the world. And in a moment of clarity, it all just hit me, thinking...
You know, completely off topic here, but I love that someone in the background yelled a disbelieving, "What?" when you stated that you were thinking.
I'm a guy who once choked my friend until bloody foam came out of his mouth. I hit him with a shovel because he disagreed with me. I don't even remember what it was about.
Okay, we get it. You're a garbage human being. Now move on to the typical, "I'm garbage and I realized I needed a savior" bullshit so we can finish this off.
I used to watch my mom's boyfriend beat her, and I wouldn't lift a finger to help her. Not because I was scared. I was 200 pounds and I had a gun. I could have stopped it at any time. I just didn't care. And I was proud of the fact that I didn't care. I thought about what I'd done to my family, what I was doing to myself. They brought me food every single day, and I was starving to death because I wouldn't eat. There were other starving people in the world, but at least they could think straight. I sat there thinking about torturing people. My skin was turning yellow. I was scratching myself bloody. What sense did it make to think that I'm the best at anything? When I was thinking about that situation, I just thought, it feels like I've just been stomped relentlessly into the ground. And when I thought that, I started comparing it with a little hospital stay about a year and a half earlier. I got into a fight with 7 guys. I'm not saying that to be tough. They won that one. And then his 6 friends got on me and got me on the ground and then took turns soccer kicking me in the head. But I was comparing that to the situation I was in. I was thinking, I was okay the next day. I had scratches on my neck. I was dizzy walking around. I had my arm in a sling, but I was okay. Fighting 7 guys is a joke compared to what I was going through in that cell.
Okay, so you were malnourished enough that it exacerbated your delusional tendencies, and now you're a Christian because of it. Great. I'm glad you admitted that.
I feel like I've just been stomped into the ground, and when I thought that I felt like I'd been stomped into the ground, I had another flashback. One night I was walking home from a friend's house and a storm hit. There was rain was so bad I could barely see. Lightning was striking all over the place, and I looked up and mockingly said, "Oh, is that supposed to scare me? If you want me to believe in you, better come down here and make me believe."
It sounds like you actually did believe in God. You were just being rebellious. I don't know of any actual atheists who don't believe in any gods whatsoever, who issue challenges to a specific god that they don't believe in. Also, if God exists and wants us to believe in him, he could easily reveal himself to everyone, so your request was reasonable, if unnecessary.
I wasn't serious, but given my circumstances in the jail, I had to start wondering if God had taken it seriously. That normally wouldn't have been an option. I didn't think like that. But since my entire worldview was crumbling, I wasn't in a position to dismiss alternatives. But there's a problem. If there was a God involved in all of this, if right and wrong weren't merely useful fictions, I was in all kinds of trouble. Not just for what I had done, but for what I was.
Here it comes, the "I suck, therefore I need God to save me from the prison that he created in the first place and doesn't have to send anyone to if he doesn't want to" bit.
How is the worst person in the world going to ever do the right thing? There's no magic switch that I can flip and, oh, now I care about other people.
Except religion, apparently. Unless you're saying you still don't care, which, I would totally believe at this point.
So how was I going to do anything right? And then it hit me. That there are 2 possibilities. Either I'm violent and selfish and uncaring, and that's just the way things are, or there's someone who can help people like me.
They're called psychiatrists.
Either I'm all messed up and that I just had to live with that, or there was someone who could deal with this sort of thing. And when you start thinking like that, I'd say you're about 2 inches away from becoming a Christian, because when we ask ourselves, who, out of anyone, ever, who had the ability to take psychologically, spiritually, and morally shattered people and give them new life, we get a list of 1.
That depends on some very loaded language that you're using here. But I'm sure there are Muslims out there who will say they were horrible people until they found Islam, and same for Buddhists and Hindus and pagans and Wiccans, the list goes on. I'm not sure if you noticed, but it was longer than 1. Sounds like you just ended up in the majority religion of the country that you live in.
You get a list of 1. There's 1 person on the list. He's the one who said, "I am the door. If anyone enters through me, he will be saved and will go in and out and find pasture."
Has anyone ever noticed how sexual a lot of the Savior doctrine sounds? Does this stuff not occur to anyone in charge of wording? Like, I know they're supposed to have pure minds and all that, but even when I was a fundamentalist Christian, I would still notice that dirty jokes could be made if one were so inclined.
The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. I didn't know if Jesus was who he claimed to be, but I knew that it was Jesus or nothing.
And you have completely failed to demonstrate that. So far, you have only succeeded in demonstrating that 1, you're completely off your rocker, and 2, people tend towards the majority religion of the country they're born in.
It was Jesus or nothing. If anyone has God's stamp of approval, it's the guy who
allegedly
rose from the dead. History is filled with dead options. Jesus is the last living option.
Except for all the other gods who died and rose again.
So I bowed down on my bunk, not sure of much of anything. And I prayed. I didn't know how to pray, but I prayed. And I said, God, I don't know if I'm going to believe in you tomorrow, but I believe in you right now.
I will be taking bets now on whether or not the horrible-looking sepia filter is gradually removed as he goes up the final flight of stairs into the magical surface world.
If you can do anything with me, you're welcome to it. And then I continued with kind of sinner's prayer that I had read in those Bible studies. And when I sat up from that prayer, the entire world looked different. Like everything was a different color.
like someone turned off the sepia filter, perhaps?
For the first time in a lot of years, I didn't want to hurt anyone. And I had a strange sense that I'd somehow known the truth all along.
Oh, of course you did, because if you didn't, then presuppositionalism wouldn't work. And although you're nowhere near as bad as that in regards to Psi 10, you definitely have some presuppositionalist tendencies that you might want to have looked at.
God created the universe, but we're something special. We're created in God's image.
Well, then God sucks, and that's putting it nicely.
But we reject God, and in rejecting God, we strive to twist and warp his image, which we bear.
I would think that if he wanted us created in his image, then being the all-powerful being that he is, he would have done it perfectly. If we were perfect images of God, then how is it possible for us to even have sinned in the first place? That is going with the definition of sin as being that which is contrary to God's nature. If you disagree with this definition, we can have that conversation in the future, but that's my current understanding.
For years, I was willing to sacrifice everything for a kind of freedom, just a freedom from external control. It's a false freedom, because we just end up using it to degrade and destroy ourselves.
Yeah, because no atheist has ever done anything worthwhile.
Tarnishing the image of God so that we won't be reminded of what we are and what responsibilities we share. True freedom is found in not having this inclination and desire to turn against our Creator.
So true freedom is being an unquestionably loyal slave. Got it.
That's the true freedom. After I prayed, I felt like I'd been fighting. Not figuratively fighting. I mean physically brawling my entire life, and that I finally had a chance to sit down and rest.
I imagine you would have been feeling pretty tired, seeing as how you were starving yourself. Is that supposed to be impressive somehow? Man, I really can't believe this guy. I honestly don't know what to make of him. I verified his story. He really was in prison for trying to kill his father. But man, either he's a deranged psychopath, in which case I imagine his conversion to Christianity was a calculated step in accomplishing two things. One, getting him out of prison early, and two, having an income with such a horrible criminal record. Or he was exaggerating what was going through his head during childhood in order to create the most dramatic conversion video he could. Either way, this guy is a piece of shit who is using religion purely for income. I'm open to other possibilities about him, but that's all I can think of. Anyways, remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and follow me on Twitter and Minds. See ya.